shadows dance and whispers echo, where the veil between worlds thins, we dare to ask what's really out there. Join us as we venture into the spirit realm, armed with science, skepticism, and a healthy dose of curiosity. This is Paranormal Declassified, The Spirit Files, a podcast by Mount Washington Valley Spirit Paranormal Investigators. Here is your host, Eric Extreme.
The veil is thinning, and reason is poised to peek through the cracks, revealing what lies beyond. The world is full of mysteries, waiting to be unraveled. Join me as I seek answers in the shadows, explore the whispers that echo in the void, search for cues to unlock the secrets of the unknown, and listen for the faintest signals of natural forces that subtly shape our perception of the supernatural in reality. My name is Eric Extreme. I will lead you as we decipher the mysteries of the paranormal here on Paranormal Declassified, The Spirit Files, a podcast by Mount Washington Valley Spirit Paranormal Investigators. The story of Halloween stirs from the chill of late autumn in the Gaelic world, when communities in Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man gathered for Samhain. As the harvest withered and winter tightened its grip, fields lay shorn, their stubble stark against the gathering gloom. Herds were counted and brought near, their lowing echoing in the twilight. Smoke, heavy with the scent of damp earth and dying embers, rose from hilltop fires as the year's bright half surrendered to the long nights ahead. People whispered that on this night, the veil between the living and the dead frayed, becoming thin and fragile. Friendly ancestors might return, a comforting thought on such a night, but restless spirits, driven by unknown hungers, might also slip through the cracks, seeking solace for mischief. Families, with a mix of reverence and dread, set aside portions of food at the threshold, a tempting offering to appease wandering souls. Disguises and masks concealed familiar faces as a way to confuse or ward off unwelcome spirits. The customs fit the season, a shield against whatever waited just beyond the firelight and the unknown terrors it might hold. Winter brought risk, a constant companion. Food stores had to last, a matter of survival against a coming famine. Fire and fellowship, warmth and companionship, helped a village face the long, cold months, a bulwark against despair. Samhain was practical and spiritual, a somber blend of earthly needs and otherworldly beliefs. It closed the agricultural year, a final reckoning before the barren months. It measured the health of the community, a vital assessment in the face of winter's harsh demands. It also honored memory, a way to keep the fading light of the past from being extinguished entirely. Later, writers would call it the Celtic New Year, a romantic notion that glosses over the underlying ease. Modern scholarship notes that the earliest sources do not use that exact label, yet the idea still helps explain why the night felt like an ending and a beginning, a threshold between worlds. It stood at the hinge of the seasons, a precarious balance between life and death. People accepted that life and death were neighbors in winter, their presence a constant reminder of mortality, and they spoke to both through ceremony, story, and song, weaving a tapestry of tradition and fear. Over time, Rome extended its rule into parts of the Celtic world, its influence a slow creep that threatened to extinguish the old ways. People often claim the Roman observances blended into local autumn customs, especially a supposed link with Pomona, a goddess associated with fruit and trees, her symbol, the tempting apple. Apples indeed show up across the Gaelic autumn, their sweetness, a fleeting pleasure before the coming cold. Games with apples became a favorite during the season, a playful distraction from the deepening nights. But is the neat story that a Roman festival of Pomona created those games actually true, or is it a convenient fiction? It is convenient, certainly, but more convenient than proven, a way to sanitize the older, more shadowed traditions. A different Roman festival named Feralia did honor the dead, but it fell in February during the Prendalia cycle, a time far removed from the autumn chill and the thinning of the veil. The safer reading, the more unsettling truth, is that native Gaelic practice carried the heart of the season, its traditions strong and resilient, while later cultures merely brushed against it without truly changing its core, leaving the ancient fears undisturbed. Christianity spread across these lands. Its message of salvation offered solace against the falling night, yet somehow leaving much of the old seasonal feeling intact, a sign of just how strong those older patterns were. In the early 7th century, Pope Boniface IV dedicated the Pantheon at Rome to the Virgin Mary and all martyrs, a May observance that honored the holy dead, a gesture of reverence and remembrance. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III set a feast of All Saints on November 1st at St. Peter's in Rome, a day to celebrate the righteous and ward off the shadows. In the 9th century, Pope Gregory IV worked with the Carolingian rulers to extend that November 1st observance across the Frankish realms, which helped fix it in the calendar. People spoke of All Hallows, a sacred time, and the night before it became All Hallows Eve, which in everyday speech became Halloween, a name that still echoes with the whispers of ancient spirits. Around the year 998, Abbot Odilo of Cluny inaugurated a remembrance on November 2nd for all the faithfully departed, a practice that spread in the following centuries as All Souls' Day, a time for quiet reflection and remembrance of those lost to the shadows. Together, the evening of October 31st and the days of November 1st and 2nd formed a 3-day season that many later called All Hallowtide, a span where church ritual and local custom met, a blend of the sacred and the secular, a dance between the light and the shadows. Candles burned in the church and in homes. The flickering light pushed back the long nights and offered a fragile sense of hope. Families visited graveyards, whispering prayers for loved ones, their voices barely audible above the rustling leaves. Then they went home to warm kitchens, seeking solace in shared loaves and the comfort of company as the wind howled outside. Medieval and early modern life in British Isles turned these ideas into living customs, traditions passed down through generations, imbued with both faith and fear. Souling is well attested in parts of England. In Scotland and Ireland, the more common custom was guising, with songs or verses for food and coins. The poor and many children visited homes to sing or to pray for the dead, in return for small round breads called soul cakes, a tasty reward for their piety and a small act of charity against the long nights, or for fruits and coins, a meager offering against the unknown. Guising grew alongside it, a more playful and mischievous custom, a way to mock the terrors of the night. Children, and sometimes adults, went out in their masks, their identities hidden, reciting verses or songs, and received food or money at the door, a light-hearted exchange that masked a deeper unease. The mask linked back to the older habit of confusing any wandering spirit that might take interest in a familiar face, a desperate attempt to avoid unwanted attention from the other side. Lanterns carved from turnips or other roots flickered on village lanes as people walked at night, their light bobbing and weaving, casting grotesque shadows that danced in the surrounding night. A face cut into a root and lit from within became a moving sign of the uncanny hour, a beacon on the path, a charm against trouble, a ward against the terrors that lurked just beyond the edge of the light. Folklore gave the lantern a story, a legend whispered around crackling fires on long autumn nights. The Irish legend of Stingy Jack tells of a trickster, a cunning rogue who dared to outwit the devil himself, only to find himself barred from both heaven and hell for his transgressions, a truly unfortunate fate. The devil, not one to be outdone, tossed him a coal to light his wandering, a cruel jest that condemned him to eternal night. And Jack placed it in a hollowed root to serve as a lamp, a desperate measure against the endless night. Jack of the Lantern became Jack-o'-lantern in popular speech, a name that still conjures images of flickering lights and mischievous spirits, a reminder of the final unknown that awaits us all. The tale does not prove the origin of the lantern custom, but it matches the symbol so well that it has become the face of the tradition, a story that embodies the spirit of Halloween, a blend of fear and fascination. When large numbers of Irish and Scottish immigrants came to North America in the 19th century, especially during and after the Irish famine, they brought those autumn practices with them, carrying their traditions across the ocean, seeking solace in the familiar and a shield against the hardships that they had left behind. Pumpkins quickly replaced turnips as the lantern of choice because they were larger and easier to carve. The practical decision transformed the holiday, making it brighter and bolder, yet it still held the same eerie glow. A small glimmer in a carved root became a great orange grin on a porch, a beacon visible from afar, a sign of defiance against the long nights, and a welcoming light for those who would travel so far. The look felt new, undeniably American, but the meaning stayed the same, a connection to the past and a reminder of home that glowed in the autumn dusk. It was still a light against the night, a symbol of hope and welcome, and a wink of the presence of the unseen, a playful acknowledgement of the mysteries that surround us, a reminder that even in this new land, people were not alone, and the spirits of the old still lingered. Colonial New England had not encouraged Halloween observance, and its Puritan leaders frowned upon such frivolity and viewed it as a dangerous distraction from piety and a gateway to more shadowy practices. They disliked seasonal customs that felt Catholic or folk centered, seeing them as remnants of a shadow past, superstitious rituals that threatened the rigid order. The night did not gain much tradition in those communities for a long time and remained a shadowy presence on the fringes of society, more whispered than celebrated. Farther south and west, however, seasonal gatherings were more common, a welcome respite from the hardships of daily life and a chance to connect with neighbors. Harvest suppers and storytelling, where tales of ghosts and ghouls sent shivers down the spines and fueled the imagination, and community games filled the social year, creating a sense of belonging and a shared experience, a bulwark against the isolation of the frontier. As the 19th century progressed, cities swelled with immigrants who carried their traditions into new neighborhoods, creating a vibrant cultural mix, a blend of beliefs and customs, where old world fears met new world anxieties. Autumn parties featured apple games, ghost tales that grew more elaborate and terrifying with each telling, fueled by the worries of a rapidly changing world, and simple divinations, desperate attempts to glimpse the future and perhaps control the unknown, a way to find certainty in an uncertain time. Children and young people also turned the night toward mischief, a harmless rebellion against the constraints of society and a way to test the boundaries of acceptable behavior, a chance to embrace the chaos and revel in the unknown. Gates went missing, spirited away in the night by unseen hands, a prank that hinted at something more sinister. Wagons appeared on rooftops, a baffling stunt that defied explanation and showed just how topsy-turvy the night could feel. Bar soap found window glass, leaving behind ghostly messages that seemed to appear from nowhere, a subtle act of vandalism that hinted at the presence of unseen forces. That tug between festivity and disorder became a hallmark of the date, a delicate balance between the fun and chaos, a reminder that the line between the two is often blurred and that the spirits of the night could be both playful and menacing. Communities look for ways to keep the fun and limit the damage, a constant negotiation between order and anarchy, and a struggle to contain the wild spirit of Halloween. Anoka in Minnesota staged large and lively public events starting in 1920 that helped redirect the energy of the night, channeling it into positive activities and offering a safe outlet for youthful exuberance. That effort, later, led the town to call itself the Halloween capital of the world, a title it wears with a mixture of pride and amusement, a testament to its success in harnessing the power of Halloween. Civic groups and newspapers around the country urged families to hold organized parties, providing a structured environment for celebration and minimizing the potential for trouble, a way to keep the children safe from harm. Schools and churches hosted costume parades, showcasing creativity and common spirit, a way to bring light to the season and celebrate imagination. Shop windows filled with black cats, witches, and smiling pumpkins cut from paper, transforming ordinary storefronts into festive displays that beckon passersby with promises of treats and thrills, a commercialization of the holiday that still managed to capture its spirit. The night moved towards unsupervised play without entirely losing its charm, a compromise between tradition and modernity that kept the mood alive while curbing the worst of the damage. Out on the sidewalks, another idea took shape, a simple exchange that would define Halloween for generations to come, a ritual as old as bargaining itself. Children could go door to door in costume and receive small gifts from neighbors, a gesture of goodwill and a symbol of community. The exchange carried a simple understanding, a playful threat that hinted at more ominous possibilities, give a treat and avoid a trick. The exact origin of the wording is buried in the early decades of the 20th century, lost to the mists of time. But the phrase trick or treat is plainly seen in Canadian print during the 1920s, a clear sign of its growing popularity and cultural weight. Broad North American adoption followed after wartime. Sugar rationing ended, especially in the late 1940s and the 1950s. Wartime sugar rationing paused the candy side during the 1940s, a temporary setback that only served to heighten anticipation. When rationing ended, the custom came back stronger than before, fueled by pent-up demand and a renewed sense of optimism. The spread of suburban neighborhoods after the war made the practice easy and safe, creating the perfect conditions for trick-or-treating to thrive and become an integral part of the American Halloween experience. Candy makers leaned in and with small wrapped sweets that fit a hand in a bucket, seized the opportunity to profit from the growing enthusiasm by locking their products into the Halloween tradition. By the 1950s, the doorbell, the costume, and the candy bowl belonged to the season as surely as the pumpkin on the porch, becoming iconic symbols of Halloween and of childhood itself. Costumes change with culture, reflecting the evolving fears and fantasies of society, and mirroring the anxieties and dreams of each generation. Early Halloween clothing was homemade and simple, crafted with care and ingenuity, often from scraps and cast-offs. A sheep became a ghost, a classic and timeless choice that evoked the spirits of the dead. A broom and a hat made a village witch, a figure of both fear and fascination, a symbol of forbidden knowledge and power. As mass production grew, boxed outfits appeared that tied the night to the shared world of movies, radio, and television, reflecting the reach of popular culture and the pull of mass media. Children and then adults walked the streets in the faces of famous characters alongside the old figures of folklore, blurring the lines between reality and fantasy and turning the sidewalks into a moving costume gallery. The great studios of the early and middle 20th century shaped a gallery of creatures and villains that soon populated October, their images forever etched in the collective imagination and inextricably linked to Halloween. Dracula, Frankenstein's creature, and the Wolfman became neighbors for one night each year, sharing the streets with trick-or-treaters and adding a touch of menace to the festivities. Later films tightened the bond between the date and the thrill of fear, with movies like one titled Halloween in 1978, giving the season an even more sinister edge that resonated with audiences and transformed the holiday. Haunted house attractions grew from church basements and charity fundraisers into large-scale seasonal businesses, offering increasingly elaborate and terrifying experiences that catered to the growing appetite for fear. Neighborhood displays multiplied, transforming ordinary homes into spooky spectacles that rivaled professional productions. A single lawn could hold a pumpkin patch, a graveyard teeming with skeletons, and a skeleton band while a fog machine breathed over the glass, creating an eerie and immersive scene that blurred the lines between reality and illusion. Adults who had once supervised the night now took part in it with friendly abandon, embracing the spirit of Halloween with childlike enthusiasm and a willingness to lean into the macabre. Under the jokes and the candy, older practices kept breathing, connecting people to the past and reminding everyone of the ancient roots of the holiday. Apple customs stayed in parties, where bobbing for apples and catching apples on a string continued to test luck and balance, a playful nod to tradition and a reminder of the season's bounty. In parts of Ireland and Scotland, special breads and sweets remained on tables, carrying echoes of ancient customs and the whispers of forgotten gods. Barmbrack with hidden tokens that hinted at future luck or love, and Coke served with small prizes tucked inside, linked families to memory, even as modern music and costumes filled the room, a blend of old and new, a fusion of tradition and innovation. In the British Isles, bonfires still burned in some places at the close of the harvest, their flames reaching toward the sky, a defiant gesture against the fading light. In many parts of the United States, simple porch lights and candles replaced the hilltop blaze, but the feeling was always the same, a sense of warmth and welcome, a small circle of safety at the edge of the night. Light in the gloom meant welcome and shelter, a promise of protection against the terrors of the night. As the holiday grew, money followed, as it always does, transforming a night of simple traditions into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Retailers learned that people love to decorate, to host, and to dress up, seizing the opportunity to profit from the growing enthusiasm and turning Halloween into a major commercial event. Spending rose steadily through the last decades of the 20th century and into the 21st, lifting Halloween into one of the largest seasonal retail moments in the country, although total spending remains far below the winter holidays. The growth reflects a shift from a single night into a season, a month-long celebration that begins with the first hint of autumn and culminates on October 31st. Many people now start with a first cool day in late September, bringing out storage bins, and set a stage that lasts until November, embracing the spirit of Halloween for weeks on end. The display can be a bowl of candy corn on a kitchen counter, a simple gesture that evokes a season, or an entire facade covered in orange lights and flying ghosts, an elaborate spectacle that transforms an ordinary home into a haunted mansion. The common thread is delight, a shared enjoyment of the season, and a willingness to lean into the eerie. Different countries have woven Halloween into local life in ways that fit their cultures, adapting the holiday to their own traditions and beliefs. In the places where Samhain began, older and newer customs stand side by side, coexisting in a careful balance between past and present. A family might enjoy a modern party and then share a slice of barmbrack with tea while grandparents tell a story about the way their parents celebrated, passing down the traditions through generations and keeping the spirit of the past alive. In Mexico and parts of Latin America, the same days hosts a remembrance of the Day of the Dead, with home altars, marigolds, and visits to the grave with music and food, a vibrant and meaningful celebration of life and remembrance that honors the spirits of the departed. The origins are distinct and belong to Mesoamerican belief and Catholic practice blending over centuries, a rich cultural heritage that is both beautiful and profound. The emotional thread, a loving conversation with the dead, is shared, a connection that transcends borders and unites people in grief and remembrance. In Japan, Australia, and many European cities, Halloween has grown through film, tourism, and social media, spreading its influence across the globe and reshaping local customs. Streets filled with costumes, a swirl of colors, and characters that reflect the diverse influences of global culture. Shops display pumpkins and sweets, tempting treats that feed the growing demand for Halloween themed merchandise. Families choose what to keep and what to invent, creating their own unique Halloween traditions that blend the old and the new. The season proves flexible and welcoming, adapting to new cultures and new contexts and finding a place almost anywhere. With growth came stories about danger that sometimes obscured the simple truth that most people celebrate kindly and safely, casting a shadow of fear over the festivities. In the 1970s and 1980s, rumors about poisoned or tampered candy spread through the newspapers and television, fueling widespread panic and anxiety. Careful study later showed that the rare tragedies involved were not the work of strangers with candy bowls, which took some of the edge off the fear. Yet the story stuck because fear is sticky, hard to shake, and preys on our deepest worries. Communities answered with common sense, a united front against the unknown, and a determination to protect their children. Parents walked with the younger children, providing a watchful presence and helping to keep them safe. Neighborhoods set hours, establishing clear boundaries and minimizing the potential for trouble. Police and firefighters lent a friendly presence, reassuring families and discouraging troublemakers, a visible sign of community support. The night went on as it always had, because the desire to meet the night together is older than rumor, a basic human need that pulls people into the street and shared ritual. The symbols of Halloween carry long memories even when people do not speak them aloud, whispering tales of the past and connecting us to the ancient roots of the holiday, a quiet language that speaks to the deep fears and desires. A candle in a pumpkin recalls the carved roots that once traveled the lanes of Irish and Scottish villages, guiding travelers and warding off malevolent spirits, a flickering point of hope in the night. A mask on a child recalls the way older villagers hid their faces from anything that might pass as Samhain, a clever disguise that offered protection from the unknown and a way to blend in with the shadows. A sweet at the door recalls a soul cake given for a verse and a blessing, a connection between the living and the dead, and a symbol of charity and remembrance, a small act of kindness that echoes through the centuries. An apple in a game recalls the hopeful glances of young people who once asked the season to hint at love, a playful divination, and offered a glimpse into the future and a chance to see the shape of their destiny in the water. Even the playful prank, when it stays light, remembers the old rhythm of misrule before winter settled in, a brief moment of chaos before the return of order, a reminder that even in the hardest months, there is room for laughter, a spark of defiance against the gloom. Facts worth keeping straight help the story stay honest, grounding the traditions in reality and slowing down the spread of misinformation. Samhain, as a fixed Celtic New Year, is a useful modern shorthand rather than a clearly documented early rule. Though the festival clearly marked a seasonal threshold, a major turning point in the year when the veil between worlds thinned. The tidy Roman origin for apple games through Pomona is at best uncertain, a convenient but unproven explanation that simplifies a complex history, a reminder that not all stories are as neat as people like them to be. The Feralia belongs to February, not to late autumn, a different time of year entirely with its own distinct traditions and its own somber rituals. The Christian calendar that frames the first days of November took shape in stages, evolving over centuries and reflecting the changing beliefs of the Church. The May dedication of the Pantheon by Boniface IV honored all martyrs, a broad gesture of respect and remembrance for those who had faced the deepest shadow. Gregory III set the November feast of All Saints in Rome, establishing a specific day of remembrance and strengthening the Church's influence of the season. Gregory the Fourth and Carolingian court expanded it in the ninth century, further fixing it in the calendar and reshaping the religious landscape. All Souls' Day began at the Cluny under Abbot Odilo near the end of the 10th century and spread over time, becoming a widespread tradition and a sign of the human need to remember those who have passed beyond the veil. The phrase trick or treat appears clearly in Canadian print during the 1920s, and the custom spread across North America in the following decades, becoming a beloved part of Halloween and a symbol of childhood, a playful exchange that hides a long memory to older door to door customs. Pumpkins replaced turnips in North America because they were abundant, large, and easy to carve, a practical choice that transformed the look of the holiday and created a new iconic symbol, while the lantern's meaning remained the same: a light in the gloom, and a ward against evil, a small defense against whatever might lurk just out of sight. What has remained steadily throughout all of this is the human need for Halloween serves, the underlying reason for its enduring popularity and its ability to adapt to changing times. People mark the passage into winter together, finding comfort in shared experience and facing the unknown side by side, drawing strength from one another as the nights lengthen. They face fear with play, turning the night into something fun and manageable, a way to tame their anxieties and reclaim the night. They honor those who have died with candles and stories, keeping their memories alive and celebrating their lives, refusing to let them be forgotten. They gave small gifts to children who arrive at the door with open hands and practice lines, continuing a tradition of generosity and community, a quiet symbol of hope for the future. They decorate because the show of it lifts the street and turns a neighborhood into a stage for shared joy, changing the ordinary into something charged with meaning. They cook and bake and remember, passing down family traditions and keeping the spirit of the past close at hand. They tell a scary story and then laugh because the monster was a friend in a mask, a reminder that fear can be faced and turned into something that makes people smile, a small lesson in resilience. The night gives permission to be both serious and silly, to whisper to the night and then sing over it, to move through a full range of feeling and come out the other side together. Listen to the sounds of a modern Halloween, and you can hear the older festival under it, echoes of the past that still ring in small, familiar noises. Leaves scrape along the curb, rustling in the wind and whispering secrets. A chorus of small voices calls out trick or treat, and then dissolves into giggles, a joyful sound that chases away the shadows. Somewhere, a bow rattles as a hand hunts for a favorite candy, a brief moment of pure anticipation. A candle winks inside a carved face each time the door is open, casting dancing shadows that flicker and fade. A dog barks and then settles, a quick interruption in the night's rhythm. The lights across the street are purple and orange, and entirely unnecessary except for the old need to make a bright place at the edge of the night. A small stage of color and glow. The same need sent sparks up from the hilltop fires when Samhain closed the fields, a signal of community and a defiant answer to the coming winter. The same need drew people into churches with candles on All Hallows' Eve and All Souls, a sign of faith and in remembrance of those who had passed. The same need made immigrant families carve a new fruit in a new country and then smile when it glowed like the lanterns they remembered, a symbol of resilience and a bridge between old soil and new streets. Halloween did not appear at once, and it did not stay fixed. It has evolved over time, adapting to the changing needs and beliefs of each generation and tapping into something deep in the human spirit. It has been a night of prayer, a night of folklore, a night of mischief, a night of childhood harvest, and a night of adult theater, a layered celebration that reflects the many ways people live with fear and with fun. It is small and domestic in one house, a quiet family evening where whispered stories fill the night. It is loud and public in the next, a crowded street filled with costumes, music, and lights. It can be a quiet remembrance in one family, a solemn honoring those who have passed beyond the veil, and a street-long party in another, a celebration that holds both the sacred and the secular in one frame. That is why it endures. It can adapt and shift to meet the changing needs of each generation, while still retaining its core essence. That whisper of the ancient world that still echoes in rustling leaves and flickering candlelight. It allows each generation to choose what to keep and what to change without breaking the thread that runs back to the first fires and the first stories. It connects people to the past and reminds them of shared humanity, that all are part of the long and unbroken chain that stretches back through time, and that the spirits of the past are never entirely gone. If you hold to that thread, the details fall into place and start to feel connected. Samhain stands at the threshold of winter, a liminal space between worlds and a time of transition and transformation. Church feasts anchor early November in remembrance, honoring the saints and the dead and offering solace to the living. Souling and guising become visits at the door with a joke and a song, a playful exchange that still holds a quiet bond between house and visitor. Jack-o'-the-lantern becomes a pumpkin on a porch, a grinning symbol of the season, and a ward against whatever prowls outside. Mischief becomes a friendly bargain between child and neighbor, a lighthearted negotiation that keeps community ties strong. The faces of monsters and heroes join the older figures because the season loves a good story and uses them to explore the wild edges of imagination. The result is a living tradition that still does what it always did, bringing people together near the edge of the night and giving them light, laughter, and company. That is the long history of Halloween, as it is lived and remembered, a story that continues to unfold with each passing year. It begins with cold fields and watchful stars, a connection to nature and a recognition of the turning year. It grows through candles and prayers, a testament to faith and a remembrance of those who have gone before. It crosses in an ocean in the memories of families who carry a season in their hands and a symbol of resilience and a celebration of cultural identity. It becomes a ring of the doorbells and a parade down Main Street, a celebration of community and a sign of the power of shared ritual. It fills shop windows and kitchen tables and church halls, transforming ordinary spaces into places of wonder and reminding people of the magic that can live inside familiar rooms. It invites the past to visit without letting it rule the present, a balance between tradition and change that enables each generation to shape its own Halloween. It reminds everyone that every year has a moment when we admit that night is long and that we will need it together, finding strength in company and facing the night with courage and with a little bit of fun. Science is the key to unlocking the mysteries of the paranormal. Don't be fooled by the shadows. Seek the light of reason. Remember, trust no one until rationality has exhausted all logical possibilities. I want to believe, but science must be your guide, because the truth is out there, just beyond the veil. This has been Eric Extreme from Mount Washington Valley Spirit Paranormal Investigators with Paranormal Declassified, The Spirit Files. Until next time, stay skeptical.
The echoes of the spirits may soften, but the mysteries we've touched upon in Paranormal Declassified, The Spirit Files, are but a breath in the ghostly expanse. The Mount Washington Valley Spirit Paranormal Investigators will continue their journey into the spirit realm, seeking to part the veils and glimpse the hidden wonders beyond. When the ethereal plane whispers more of its secrets, we will unlock the shadows of the beyond. The afterlife awaits us there.